Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and once again, I am delighted to welcome Des McLean to the studio. You're back.
I am back, and it's a pleasure to be here. And we've just been catching up there for the last 2 hours, talking about everything. And the cameraman's going off his head, so we better start.
We should have filmed all that.
It was good stuff. It was quality content.
Yes, we've spoken on A Celtic State of Mind twice.
Yes.
First time round, we were going for the 10 days, let's not forget. And then the second time was a wee bit different. We were chatting about the now late, great Bertie Auld and the Bend It Like Bertie. So we're going to get a right update on everything Celtic and everything Bertie.
Yeah.
And Bend It Like Bertie.
Sounds good.
Let's think back to that wee conversation we had. You were out and about and we were chatting about Neil Lennon and going for the 10. Where did it all go wrong?
As you said before, we weren't just going for the 10. It was a given. It was set in stone. It was the most concrete, assured thing ever. It was just a case of how much it was going to be one of the biggest. It wasn't just the 10. And then it just all fell apart. And remember that crazy weekend where the Old Firm game was the last thing to get cancelled? Nicola Sturgeon, what are you doing? What are you doing? Everybody else has cancelled it. And we were going to Ibrox with a full squad. They were in trouble. They'd just been beaten by Leverkusen and all that. And we thought, but no, I don't know. Can anybody really answer that question? How did it fall apart?
We spoke about it on a daily basis throughout the season. We still don't have an answer. I think it was a perfect storm. Death by 1,000 cuts, some would say.
A great man once said.
Yes. And of course, we had the introduction of Ange Postecoglou. Now, again, when it comes to commenting on Celtic, I can't say I believed in him from the start because I'm there every day speaking about it, Des, and I give my view and give my opinion. And I was very much of the view that we'll get back, we'll back him, we'll get behind him, absolutely, 100%. But at that time, again, the club seemed to be in a bit of a shambolic state. Look at us now.
I remember you saying that, we have to speak about Ange. But you weren't alone. I remember I was in a big group chat. We've all got our WhatsApp group chats. And it was a full, no, this isn't working. That Aberdeen game was coming up. There was a big corner returned. And I remember you saying, right, what's going on here? This isn't good enough. And it wasn't. The results weren't in Europe. And then he just turned it round incredibly, like no one. The way, and I remember it, like Rangers fan pals and a lot of them were all going, how's Ange Ball getting on? Sarcastic, how's Ange Ball? And we couldn't really answer that. The turnaround has been nothing short of incredible. I remember when he got to 6 points behind, then we got to, we were level, then that game just after another wee lockdown, and that then look where we are now.
I think the big thing for me is that he had this idea of how he wanted to play, and he had this philosophy, and he stuck to it. So there was this period where people were saying he needs to adapt, he needs to change to suit the Scottish game, to suit the players he's got at his disposal, and he didn't. He stuck to his guns, he brought in the players he needed, and as you say, it clicked. And one of the biggest parts of that, I believe, is Callum McGregor. Now, we've just had the nominations for the Player of the Year. I know that there's more entertaining players, there's flair players, but in terms of a guy taking that captain's armband off of Scott Brown, a bona fide legend, and what he's done, how he's performed this season, how impressed have you been?
Incredibly impressed. He is the all-round brilliant player. He doesn't need to do what Scott Brown did. You know, Scott was, he knew how to play them. Like the stance, the bullying, the no nonsense. But Callum McGregor doesn't need to do that. He is just a fantastic player. And you're right about Ange, though. No matter what was happening, he was always going to do it his way. And he came on his own. We were going back to, like Eddie Howe. He wanted, the whole. There was something like, 15, 20?
A whole bus.
A whole bus.
Yep.
So it was just, and Ange just came over, nothing, his own man, get on with it, and that's it. But yeah, you're right, McGregor gets my vote too for the Player of the Year, no question. When Callum McGregor is like, he's always an 8 out of 10 minimum. And if he's a 7.5, 8, you're kind of going, he was the only guy there a couple of weeks ago that tried a leg against Rangers. Don't care what MD says, he was. And he is Mr. Reliable through and through. And
he's doing that with an injury that's still healing, recuperating from that while still playing. The other player, and we've spoken long and hard about this one, is someone who's been written off time and time again. And I was saying the other day there that although I don't want any Celtic players to be unavailable, I'm quite happy that Ralston is going to be playing in the running. What a turnaround in his career at Celtic as well.
That's the biggest turnaround. You know how when Rodgers came, there was about 4 players that he totally turned round. And when O'Neill came as well, Petrov and all that, there was always the players that that's how you could tell. The Ralston one is nothing short of incredible. There was nobody, I don't care what anybody says, nobody says, I was always behind that boy. They weren't. When he signed that contract, they're saying, why are we doing this? Every other, the amount of fullbacks that kept him out of the team, terrible. I'm not naming names, but John Joe Kenny was awful, right? Okay. But you know what I mean? They weren't, the amount that was always a better option than that boy. And then the turnaround was just unbelievable. Slowly but surely, he just kept pulling it out the bag and setting up goals, scoring goals, and his character, incredible. Yep.
The mental fortitude to be able to go to your work every day, Des, and not be allowed to perform at the weekend and you're training all week, but to do that not just for a few weeks, but for seasons on end under various managers, but to stick with it. I take my hat off to him.
Do you think Big Ange has just put his arm around his shoulder and just said to him, right, son, I believe in you. You're the man, and just went, we can do this, and it looks as though he has. This is about you. I've got faith in you. We can do this. Get out there. Eye the tiger. He must have.
No preconceptions.
No.
And because he's turning up and he's his own man, there's people there who also refused to play him in John Kennedy. He refused to play Tony Ralston at the end of last season. And Ange is obviously just so focused on what he wants to do. So if there's a most improved player of the season, it goes to Tony.
Oh, without absolutely no question about that.
When we talk about the Celtic way and what that is, and the rip-roaring, free-scoring, never-boring, copyright Tony Haggerty, Glasgow Celtic, we've also had that flair this season, and a lot of the newer players like Abada, Jota, Kyogo. What have you made of these flair players playing the Celtic way?
They have been an absolute breath of fresh air, but also they are playing the Celtic way. There was a game a couple of weeks ago against St Johnstone that was probably some of the greatest football that we've ever seen at Parkhead, and we're not getting carried away here. You're watching that game and it was just liquid football, as a great man once said. And they players, I know we all want them, we're never happy when Jota shows flashes of brilliance. We want it all the time. If if there's a game where he doesn't have the best game, you're like, oh, he's a dud, the usual. People aren't happy. But those Kyogo, that move, if we can vote, if there is such a category as move of the season, the one where Jota fired the ball up to Kyogo in Europe, and he just, the first touch, impossibly good, and then he finishes it. If that was Barcelona or any other team, they'd be showing it all season. It's been something else, and that's the Ange way. It's been an absolute breath of fresh air. And that is the way he wants us to play, isn't it?
He's got this ideal, and it comes from his dad. It comes from Ferenc Puskás. Total football. That's what he wants to play. It suits me. The other thing that was a concern is I felt Rangers had a hex on us. The tail end of Neil Lennon's time. Ange comes in, first game against Rangers, they beat us, and that was a big worry for me. But we've overcome it, and we've overcome it with a bit of style as well.
We've overcome it, but it was still a decent effort. It wasn't like that. Remember the one with Neil Lennon at Parkhead? We didn't even have a shot at goal. Yeah. At least there was one. Remember Christie should have squared it, and then Kyogo should have. At least it was a decent enough game. But then look what's happened since. Look at the game at the start of February. We cannot argue with that. 3-0 up. In that first half, we absolutely battered them. That is what we want to see. Totally committed. Amazing. So yeah.
What's your take on the fans? I mean, being there that night. The cameraman Kelvin was also there, first time at Celtic Park.
Really?
In that game, that atmosphere. What do you feel about 60,000 Celtic fans against giving them a fair amount of away tickets? What's your thoughts on this? We probably shouldn't be discussing it, but we're in that situation where there's been a bit of to and fro. There's been a few games with no away fans and then cut allocations. What's your take on it?
I still like it the old-fashioned way. I would like a Rangers fans to make it, what if you say you hammered Rangers, would you not want, a bit of atmosphere there, them to see that as well? I'm sure I wouldn't want to be at Ibrox if we were getting, yeah, totally. I mean, I don't like this, like 60,000, the total partisan crowd, and then there's all an excuse, well, we weren't there, it was all one-sided, we couldn't cope with it was all just your fans, there was no Rangers fans, and I quite like the idea of that. I don't know about you, but I'm not for it at all.
Well, I enjoyed the away days. Yeah. I've got to be honest.
The old Brimlin Road stand, yep.
And if you get a result, it's fantastic.
Or even better, yeah.
We go on about the derby, and its worldwide appeal, and certainly I think what would happen is if it starts to affect what is deemed to be one of the best atmospheres in the world, then I'm pretty sure other people will step in, i.e. broadcasters will step in and get the thing sorted. Of course, it wasn't Celtic that started it, but they respond. I'm also looking towards next season. I'm not counting my chickens, but I've said this before to you, Des. I reckon Celtic are going to win the league. All right. Listen back to that one. Yeah, absolutely. But then I start thinking straight away, what next? Because I've seen Ange's performance in the transfer windows ×2, and it's been tremendous. There's been a few, but that always happens, that haven't really kicked on. But largely, his signings have been tremendous. We're going into another transfer window, and then we're going to have a tilt at Europe. He has ambitions. As fans, realistically, what should our ambitions be for Celtic?
I think, and I'm not getting carried away, that Celtic are now going to be a bit of a decent team. I'm not saying a force in Europe, but I think now with the backing of the fans and the togetherness and Ange, he's making guys like, with all due respect, Ralston play again. What can he do? Imagine when the European nights are back and you get under the floodlights, and you've got Ange and they're all playing for him. They are all playing for him, and he starts, and he's more signings come in. I think Celtic can bring that magic back, because one thing you needed, it wasn't there before, is to play for that manager, and he's got them all playing for him. So even ordinary players, your Greg Taylors and all these guys have been really playing well lately. Greg Taylor, Carol Starfelt, Abada, these are the whipping boys, and you're always going to get that. But guys like that have stepped up to the plate as well. So I think we can have a decent European outfit. And, you're already, it's the Celtic Park's like a 12th man anyway on a European night. Great players from all over the world have said that, but it's going to be even better now, and I think this will suit Ange to a T.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The other player I'm going to mention is Giakoumakis, and the reason for that is last season I never heard any player coming out being bullish or full of self-confidence. It was like we just whimpered away by the end of the season. Giakoumakis comes out and says, we've got the best squad, we're going to win the league, and he gets criticised for that. I loved it. How did you feel when you heard them saying that?
Well, why not? He's allowed to say that. There's nothing wrong with being a bit confident. It's better than saying, we're the underdogs and all that. We missed him badly against Rangers. You needed him up there to hold the play up and, a wee bit, to give them back a wee bit. Celtic get kicked about that game, we did. And I had no problem with him coming out and saying that. You look at all the guys from over the years, guys like Brian Clough and all that. I'm not saying I'm the best, but I'm in the top one. And all these players, we loved all that. We loved all the players. Nothing wrong with that at all. Bring it on. That was
this man here. The gallous nature of several...
Gallus.
Yeah, exactly. That's the word, eh? That is the word for Bertie.
The word gallus was invented to go with this man. Bertie was gallus. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean...
Beautiful links, bringing it onto that. Lovely.
You look at the tunnel at Lisbon. If you didn't have that, is it arrogance? Is it self-belief? Is it a mixture of the both of them? If you didn't have that, then you don't have one of the fairy tale moments in Celtic history.
I was standing there in the tunnel at Lisbon, and I'm looking across at Sandro Mazzola. He looked like Omar Sharif. They all looked like film stars. And wee Jinky turned to me and he said, Bertie, they look like movie stars. It's like Hollywood. Look at them. I says, I know, Jinky, but can they play? And that's when I looked at them all and he was right. They'd the suntan. They'd the white teeth. I'd never seen teeth so white. Oh, your teeth were Ronnie Simpson's bonnet. And then I looked at Big Caesar and he looked magnificent. And that's when my chest was puffed out and I went,
join in at home, hail, hail. So there you go. Yeah, he was a man. What is wrong with that? When you look back at the sporting champions like Muhammad Ali and all that, was he a modest man?
Exactly.
Not at all.
No, you're right.
So big Giakoumakis, spot on.
Aye, and I remember when he said it, people, again, maybe last season is, damaged some people's confidence a wee bit. But I thought, no, that's great. I wish we had more characters like him last season. We're now talking about Bertie. You had the great honour of meeting the man.
Many times. I was telling you a story there in a pub in the East End, the Ranza Bar in Black Hill, and I was there for the opening of the new window in the Ranza. It didn't have one, and me, Bertie and Frank McAvenny were there at a wee charity night on a
Is
on a
the
Wednesday
window
night.
still there?
The window is, I think they've actually got a new improved double glazed window, genuinely, and Bertie...
that's a great window, that. What is it? Is it magnet?
So, no, this is the thing I'm trying to explain. He was there at a charity night in Black Hill, right? The East End. And so I met him doing a gig there, and then I met him at the other end of the spectrum in Vegas. So I was doing a gig for the Celtic convention in Vegas, nice gig to get. The first guy to come up to me was the Bold Bertie.
See, that was magnificent up there, son. See, when you were up there doing your Billy Connolly and all your Sylvester Stallone, that I love all that. See that? You have the ability to entertain.
And as we all know, Bertie loved.
Entertainment.
So he was the first guy to say, this, what you were doing up there was amazing, it was magnificent. And I'm thinking, this is a legend, this is a Lisbon line. I thought, gee, my Dalby, oh my God. And then I'm sitting next to him on the plane for 10 hours and he's regaling me with all the stories about him and wee Jinky doing this and Celtic and Big Billy was doing that and Jock. And this was like a competition one. He was sitting there and he was just amazing to listen to. He said, you know, the Bold Bertie, every syllable's a prisoner.
And we were sitting there, and that's when Big Tiny Wharton, he was having a shocker. He came running over towards me with no great pace, I hasten to add. And I said, Mr. Wharton, if I called you...
Anyway, you know the stories, right? we don't swear on this anymore, do we?
You can swear.
But Bertie's allowed to swear.
Of course he is.
It's like poetry with Bertie. Bertie and Billy Connolly are allowed to swear. There's no, you know, and... Anyway, that story about Tiny Wharton is a very, very famous story. But Bertie told me all these stories and a lot. I had the director's cut, you know, on the plane. All these stories and a lot more for 10 hours. And he said, you do me? I went, oh, no. I says, you know, and then it's funny how things work out. We're now doing Bend It Like Bertie, a tour, a homage and a tribute to the great man. So it's incredible. But yes, he was gallus, no question.
Was definitely gallus. The thing as well, you were talking about Scottish bands earlier. Gun had an album called Gallus with Benny Lynch on it as well. But when I think of Bertie and I think of the Celtic Tunnel and folklore and fairy tale, don't you think we should rename the Celtic Tunnel after the great man?
That's a no-brainer. That's a given. I don't know why it's not been done yet. Definitely the tunnel, that is a big story in it when he started singing in the tunnel. Why not? That would be perfect.
Yeah. And I've got to say thank you, Tony Haggerty, for that suggestion.
Was it Tony's?
Yes.
So that's two of Tony's today that were right.
You already loved
copyrighted.
Bertie.
Yeah.
You loved him. And then you come into contact with Jim Orr, who many people in a Celtic state of mind will be very familiar with. He's a regular contributor, and we know that he's done various plays in the past. For anyone who hasn't watched our last discussion around the original showings of Bend It Like Bertie, tell us a wee bit about how you came into contact with Jim and how he pitched this to you.
I went to see Bend It Like Bratback. A few of your viewers have probably seen that. It was a brilliant. I kept missing it. I was always working and all that. I was always on at the night and in the evening. I'm doing stand-up comedy, so it was on one. It was a final. I think it was one of the final showings, and it was in Gracie's Irish bar. So it was more of an intimate viewing that night, and it was brilliant. It was brilliant. It just showed you how mad that season was, you know, stopping the 10. Oh, and you were actually, your heart was still leaving, going, oh, thank God we done that. That could have, you know, losing the first two games and all that. And even my wife, who's not into football, was saying, God, that was some season, wasn't it? I mean, that was up and down. It wasn't good for the old blood pressure that season. So then we got talking, and he was telling me he was going to do another play. And by the way, we were talking about lockdown earlier on. Jim was my human podcast during lockdown. I would phone him up, he would phone me up, and he would just talk. He'll probably say I was the same, right? But it was, and we talked for an hour, 2 hours, and I've got this idea, and he says, I'm going to be writing another play, and he says, and Bertie Auld's going to be in it. So during lockdown, it gave me something to do, so I went and practiced my Bertie, and I was watching all the YouTube and all that. And
you have the ability to entertain. If you could
and I just went over it, and then I phoned him up and left a big message, and he phoned me back and he went, right, Bertie's in the play and you're Bertie, and it gave, you know, a wee. So it was on this as well, Death by 1,000 Cuts. So that gave us something to focus on during lockdown, and it just I couldn't believe lockdown was weird, you know, how long it was, and then I didn't. When I looked back, I said to Jim, God, we messaged one hour about 2018, 2019, something like that, and you don't realise that lockdown just flew by. And then just out of lockdown, we came out and we went to Webster's, which was all sold out. 4 shows, a wee matinee on a Saturday afternoon, and it was just brilliant to come out and do any gig. I was doing beer garden gigs and Zoom gigs, but to come out and do 260 people, all Celtic fans, I'll never forget walking out. The old heart was absolutely racing, because it's not like just going out and doing a stand-up comedy gig where I can just say anything and nobody else knows what's going on in my head. I had to go out there, and it's a legend, a real legend. You know, the word legend is bandied about too cheaply. Bertie Auld, and it was all Celtic fans. And I remember standing there, and I'm waiting to go on, and the 60s soundtrack's playing. Absolutely brilliant soundtrack as well. And then there was, I was standing there, and there was all these latecomers, and I went, hey, what's going on? Can I get you anything? Like maybe a fucking watch? Right, and then I just started in Bertie mode, the way Bertie would have just started heckling people and starting talking to the audience. And it worked a treat, and I thought that's it. And then they were all laughing away, and it was just like Bertie standing, busking with them, having a laugh with them, joking. So it was brilliant. And yes, you're playing a legend, but it's also great fun. Bertie was just... Billy Connolly said Bertie Auld would have been a stand-up comedian. And he was a brilliant stand-up comedian. His timing was unbelievable. He walked into a room, he would slag everybody off in a good way. It would just, the whole room would just light up. Bertie was there. And when you're going out there and you're having a laugh, I'm thinking, Bertie would have enjoyed that. Bertie loved impersonations as well. He really loved impersonations. He loved, do your Billy Connolly again, son. That was magnificent, do that. And then his son came along when we were down at Greenock in the Beacon. Very, very emotional night that night. Bertie died sadly the next day, and Robert, his son, was there, and he had to leave early. So that was a hell of a weekend. But now, you know, we were at the launch of the Bertie Legacy, the 10:30, the Bertie at 10:30 in the morning. I turned up. I was going to a wedding after. I was more like Hugh Grant than Bertie Auld. And I was doing about 10 minutes as Bertie and a few of his funny stories there. So, but Robert, his son, was right behind it, and he says, good luck with it and all that. So that's what you want. And he was happy. He said, oh, you've nailed him. You've got him down to a T and all that. And I thought, that's nice, you know. So it's just great. It's great fun to do, and that's where you got to look at it. It's just great buzz, great cast, great play, brilliant play, you know. So
you mentioned there about Billy Connolly and how Bertie could be a comedian. We've already discussed he could have also been a gangster in Scorsese's movies.
You're obsessed with this. Do you know what? You came out with this. I don't know what goes on in your mind, sir. But you were right. It got some laugh the last time. We were talking about how he could... When there was a certain photograph that Jim Orr held up, and it was a photo of Bertie, and he did. You says he could be, you know, Bertie the Hatchet Auld or Bertie the Bad, you know. And you're right. He just looked... And you could imagine Bertie being on... You know, when Bertie went to Birmingham, and you could imagine Bertie being a Peaky Blinder.
I know.
You know, walking about...
Arthur, we're going to see a man called Bertie Auld. I'll rip his head off, Tommy. I'll rip his friggin' head off, Tommy. So what's this you're saying, guys? What's this you're saying? Carry on, Peaky Blinders. I'll crack your jaw, you pair of half-wits, you. Carry on, so it is. Listen, it was magnificent. See tonight, when you battered that boy, good, but it's no finish yet. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to make him an offer that he couldn't refuse, right? He's going to end up with a horsey seed in his bed. Simple as that. Big Jock sorted it.
No, but you were right, and we were doing all that the last time we were on. In case you missed it, it was funny with the old...
Hey, this guy's a Lisbon lion. What the fuck's a Lisbon lion? He's a Lisbon lion, you know that. I'm a Lisbon lion, son. Listen, I'll tell you another thing. See your De Niro and your pets, you know that. I'll batter...
No, sorry. So, I know what you mean, though. He does have that pure gallus gangster, you know, the 60s. He could have been a pal of the Craze.
Oh, yeah.
You could see the Craze sitting going, all right, Bertie, you got to sort this out for us, mate. You know, and Bertie going, I'll deal with it, son. I'll deal with it. I had a word with him. Carry on. So, he's all things, isn't he, to all men? He's some man.
Oh, unbelievable. Listen, see when we lose anybody in the Celtic family, and particularly, you know, the Lisbon Lions, because I think back to when I was a kid, getting introduced to going to the games, these guys are superheroes. And then as you get a wee bit older, you realise that, you know, they're getting old and they start passing away. I always think about statues because we've got a few unbelievable statues. And I think that every Lisbon Lion, you know, deserves a statue. And I don't know if they should all be up at Celtic Park Days or they should be somewhere else that's synonymous with the individual. But somebody like Bertie Auld, you need to have a statue up at the park, surely.
I know it's up for debate, but I think Bertie Auld is the greatest ever Celt, just because, and you know, Billy McNeil's a legend, of course, he has Big Caesar and all that, but Bertie, he was such an amazing ambassador for Celtic. He would stop and talk to everybody. And he was a force of nature. And it's not easy, you know, and he was getting on, but he was still, you know, wherever there was an opening of anything, Bertie was there. He was working in Bears Bar just to talk to the punters and all that, you know. And yeah, he was, to me, Mr. Celtic. He loved the club. He loved the fans. He just was such a lovely guy, engaging, gallus, funny. Yeah, there's got to be a statue of Bertie. And I could just see it with the wee, you know, that one, the Leeds United, he's got a wee hat on.
I know.
You know, the wee cigar and the hat. You know, that's the one. That epitomises gallousness, doesn't it? Just that would be an amazing statue. You know, you wouldn't mind getting a wee photograph of that. You know?
There's some amazing images from that era. If you think about that one of Bertie, the one wee jinky after Real Madrid with the football in his hand.
Holding the ball. Like, now that's cocky, isn't it?
I know.
Is that allowed?
It's
We're talking about
holding the world in your hand almost.
Big Jackie, you know,
Yeah.
no, we weren't happy with him saying that. What's happened, you know? So,
Nah, we need a wee bit of that
but
back
Bruni
in.
was bold.
Yeah,
Really, really bold, you know.
absolutely.
So I don't know what happened there.
Now, you've had a success, and I think a big part of that would be for a member of Bertie Auld's family to say, you've nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, again, Jim, as he does, it's on to what do we do next? And we've got this unbelievable tour. Tell us a wee bit more about the tour and where you're going to be visiting.
Right, we're starting off at the spiritual home of Bend It Like Bertie, which has got its Webster's in the West End. It was a cracking theatre, right in the middle of Great Western Road. So that's where we came out of lockdown the last time, and we had 4 brilliant nights there. Brilliant. And so that was a nice one. 3 nights in and a wee matinee, and it was just amazing. So we're going back there for 3 nights, and then we head to Motherwell Theatre, which I think there's only about 10 tickets left or something as we speak right now. So we go to Motherwell, and that will kind of cover everybody, all your Coatbridge, you know, all your Lanarkshire mob. And then we're away to Kilbarchan and Paisley, because we didn't have anywhere in Paisley, and Kilbarchan Memorial Hall. That's just a village there. And then we're off to we're off to Oban, sunny Oban after that. Then we're off to Dundee, which is selling incredibly well. Dundee, so they're all going for it. Then it's through to your neck of the woods, which Lothian, Bathgate and Livingston. And then, this is great, I'm getting to plug all these. Then Giffnock, the posh end of Glasgow, which is almost sold out as well. There's not a lot. Rothes Halls, Glenrothes, Eden Court up in Inverness. And then it's Dunoon, which will be great. Falkirk, the Brunton in Musselburgh, and the beautiful Tivoli in Aberdeen. You should see this. What a way to end. Honestly, it looks like the Sistine Chapel. The Tivoli Theatre in Aberdeen. Beautiful way to end the tour.
That's an incredible tour.
That's a brilliant tour. But by the way, people... I was on radio yesterday and they were saying, oh, you know, is it just going to be Glasgow punters that want to go to, you know, that? Aberdeen's selling really well. You know, there's going to be Celtic fans everywhere, obviously. It's a massive brand. So I love the idea of going round about, whether it's Dunoon, Oban, you know, Aberdeen, Livingston, doesn't matter where. I just love different areas, you know, right across the board, seeing this show. But it is an absolute emotional roller coaster. It was already kind of emotional before Bertie passed away, but see now, Jim Orr has made it, there won't be a dry eye in the house. There's a wee moment at the end which I find it very hard when Bertie just talks about, you know, I won't give anything away, but it's a very, it's up and down, very, very funny, hysterical, but very sad in places as well. So it's the kind of thing you could take your mum along to and she'll love it. Great 60s soundtrack too.
That's right up my street. Now the thing is, Des, you spent an airplane journey to Vegas. Could this go to Vegas?
Well, it's already been asked to go to Vegas.
There you go.
And that would be fitting because Bertie was Mr. Vegas. Bertie would get up in Vegas and sing a song, tell a few jokes. He loved it because, as you said before with the gangster thing, you could see Bertie sitting in Vegas.
Hey, sorry I'm late, Mr. Auld. You know, we got to... You should have been here at 6:30. Fucking Diddy. Right, get him, fix him in Manhattan. Right, now, what am I...
so, no, but you could. I can't get that out of my head now. So, yes, we're going to be going to Vegas. And also we were meant to be going to New York. It all happened so quick. And it was like, we're going to Vegas, we're going to New York, we're going to Toronto. And we were like, right, okay, hold our horses, right? And then, so the guy who organised Vegas, he's probably going to be watching. He says, if I'd have known about this 6 months ago, it'd be in Vegas this year. Let's do it next time and we'll do it all, you know. But we were also, we're taking this around the world. Vegas would be perfect for us because Bertie, he loved going to Vegas. And as I say, when I was over there, Bertie he was always the first guy in the morning standing around about the pool, and he was just, for him to come up to me after the gig and go, "That was magnificent, son." I thought, what a guy. Didn't need to do that. What a
what
guy.
an accolade.
Always full of encouragement.
Now, hopefully it goes to Vegas, but the next time you're on here, hopefully we're looking back on a title win in Des McLean. It's always a pleasure to invite you into the studio. Thank you so much for joining us on Celtic State of Mind.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. Thank you.